Uh, First of all, we are well aware, at least I am and Nancy is, that today is a national holiday. The NCAA championship game is at 8:50. So we're gonna we're gonna move as fast as we can, but welcome everybody. So glad you could come. Hi Cam, good to see you. Um, Call this meeting of the New Shoreham Town Council to order. Today is Monday, April 7th. It is 7:01 p.m. Our first order of business is to convene the Board of License Commissioners. Um, Can I have a motion to, in a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by
Aye.
saying aye. We're now convened as the Board of License Commissioners. And our first item is to discuss and act on a request for relief from 585 Hospitality. This is that new Spring House facility in New Harbor, which is applying for a Class BH beverage license under the New Shoreham liquor license rules and regs. Is anybody here who would like to speak? How are you? Welcome.
Good, how are you?
Terrific, thank you.
My name is Mario Martone. I am the attorney representing applicant.
Yes, how are you, Mario?
Very well. Well, actually, I'll let you know about.
Yeah, right, exactly.
There we go.
This is
Okay.
a full-time job on Block Island.
I appreciate it. I totally understand. So, again, my name is Mario Martone. I'm the attorney representing the applicant in this matter. We are requesting two items of relief from the typical rules that this council typically would apply. Just as a way of background, first of all, thank you for allowing me to present before you. I understand we have a big game coming up, so I will try and be brief, but I want to do my client a service as well.
Indeed.
So, and I also apologize. I mean, no disrespect. I had an issue getting to the ferry where the wind blew my jacket out of my hand, so it's covered in mud right now. So I do not mean any disrespect to the council.
Welcome to Block Island.
And the ferry ride was an interesting endeavor at 5 o'clock today as well. So just a little background about me, just because I want to make sure that I present to you all the information and all the facts. So prior to coming to work for the firm that is representing this client, I had worked in the city of Providence for about 10 years doing licensing prosecution. So I have seen all of the good, all of the bad with regard to liquor licenses and the effects they can have on both the establishment itself and the surrounding neighborhood. I'm also a council person in North Providence, so we serve as the liquor board. And so I've seen it from that side too. And I totally understand the concerns when these matters come before you. But what I want to say is that if I were creating the ideal person to hold a liquor license or the ideal entity to hold a liquor license, I can say without question that this client and the DBA's family are that type of operator. They have held licenses in several different jurisdictions, several different types of licenses, and here for 30 years with no issues. They are incredibly responsible operators, which is why I would request that you give them consideration tonight. So the other thing that I think is important here is how we got to this point is during the application period, the town council authorized application period, this entity applied for a BV license. They came before you back in November, and as a result of speaking with the council, as a result of hearing from some concerns from neighbors, they continued the matter voluntarily, and they kind of went back to the drawing board to assess what they were looking to do and how they wanted to do it. And as a result of that, and in consultation with town staff and town attorneys, what they came up with was the idea that instead of asking for a BV license, which is, as this council knows, is a full-blown liquor license, restaurant license, bar license, however you want to term it, it is the full complement of liquor serving licenses. They they scaled it way back and they subsequently asked for a BH. Now, this is a hotel license, for lack of a better term, where you are serving to the rooms, and there is no bar, there is no restaurant. It's a incredibly limited license. The reason why I say that is because the relief that we are requesting all hinges on this application period, which is September 15th to September 30th. And what I think is really important here is that the original BV application was filed on September 16th. And even though there was a new application subsequently filed, it was as a result of a collaboration with the town and going back to the drawing board to apply for a new kind of toned down license. So I know that the big kind of hiccup here is that there's the application period and this is technically out of time. But what I would suggest to the council is that just as easily as they filed the new application, they could have also come back to you and asked for a modification of the original application, which I think would have brought them within the application period and a relation back to that application time. So that's one. I think that there is just cause for the council to hear this. And then two, I know that there is a requirement that there's a beneficial component to the public at large. And what I would say is that this is a building that was, in disrepair. It has been totally rehabbed, actually rebuilt. It's going back on the tax rolls, which, as a council member, I know that's really important. And the other thing is that this is a company and this is a family that has created a hospitality brand that I think and speaks for itself. And by allowing this, I think this will allow them to elevate the experience of this new inn. It will be something that I think the entire island can be proud of. And I also think it provides a reputational benefit. When people come and they're able to have that experience, they can, that is a benefit to the public at large. It brings people back. It brings people, it provides good word of mouth. And so I do think that this particular applicant does meet those requirements for relief. And I would ask that you consider that. And then if you do consider that, obviously we can make a subsequent presentation with regard to the actual license itself. But I know you have to contemplate the relief first.
Are there any questions? Relief?
I have a question.
Go
Which
ahead.
is, now I know that you said that we continued that it was continued, but did we continue this or did the applicant remove their application?
It was continued until, I believe it was mid-February. And then prior to that February meeting, the applicant withdrew the application.
Yeah. So
To-
is it really continued or is it a withdrawn application?
It's a withdrawn application, but it was initially, I mean, that other application was continued.
And and if I may, it was withdrawn in order to put in the new application. So and kind of like I briefly mentioned, I do think that it was kind of a swap out of licenses. And in the alternative, I do think they could have come to the council and maybe they should have and asked for the council to consider just a modification, which would have brought them back into that September time period.
Questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Karen Benson.
Hi, Karen.
I did submit a letter through the clerk's office. I represent the abutters, Rob Roach and Lynn Roach and Beach Block LLC. We're direct abutters to the property, practically sharing a driveway. So if you saw my letter, I guess the first objection that we have is that there really is no public benefit to the application. I spoke both to Mr. Hausman and to Frank himself. And they both acknowledged that the nature of this proposed license is one that doesn't require people on the premises. So it's not as though they're going to be retaining new employees or hiring people. It isn't going to generate that kind of benefit to the community. But I think more importantly, now that we've discussed the timeline a little bit, it seems to me that the applicant had more than adequate time to determine what was the most appropriate license for their facility and to submit it in a timely manner. I would respectfully suggest that nothing's happening here right now. Things will start in May. Then there'll be May, June, July, August, September. They can come back and file on an equal footing with everyone else who's looking for a license. And in the interim, we will all get a chance to see whether or not they are good neighbors and whether they're running the premises appropriately for something that's in the middle of what is otherwise largely a residential area. So I won't belabor the point. I know you're going to consider that first level of relief,
Yes.
but we do object to the relief on those two grounds.
Gotcha. Any, go ahead. Is this on the relief? Just so you know, we're doing two separate things here. The first is we have to grant relief to them in order to entertain their application. And if that relief is granted, no, I think I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm just,
Yeah.
we have, it's a little more technical than what we usually do. Yeah. Yep. Terrific. Thanks.
So I guess to get it moving, I'll put a motion on the table to grant the relief, just in order to proceed and hear the rest of it.
Is there a second to that? Did you? Is there a second? I'll second. So Millie, what would we do here? We have to take A and B separately because the first would Nancy's motion cover us, I guess?
I think that you can deal with them together,
Okay, great.
as long as assuming in your motion, you're granting relief on both of those principles.
Great. Okay.
And Keith, if I may, Nick
Please.
Salitra, I would just state, assuming that the motion is to grant the relief, the standard that you folks are applying, because this is extraordinary relief from the specific terms of your regulation, it requires there to be a finding of just cause as to why that relief is being granted, as well as a finding that the community at large will benefit in granting the relief. So just cause and the community at large will benefit. So if a motion is going to be made, and it may be after some discussion here, that those two factors be supported by findings of fact.
Okay.
So do I understand, we don't have to take a vote on this? This just gets rolled into, is that what we're saying, or?
Nick, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a motion or if a member of the board is contemplating a motion, you may want to state your reasons. By way of example, if you were in favor of granting extraordinary relief, you may say, I move to grant this relief because I find just cause for X, Y, and Z as to why this relief needs to be granted. Additionally, I find the community at large will benefit from granting this relief because of A, B, and C. And then you'll see if you have a second, and then you can have discussion thereafter.
Hold on one sec, Paul. I just want to figure things out procedurally and then we'll move on to that. So I'm going to withdraw my second because I think based upon what Nick said, we need a
More robust motion?
more robust motion. Yes. Paul?
At the Manasees, we have the only other BV liquor license in town. And so if I could just speak to this issue for a moment.
BH.
BH.
Yeah.
This is the one where you can serve in the rooms, right? Like in the mini bars. And we have that license at the Manistee as well. And maybe people don't understand exactly what it is. It's so that the people that are in their rooms, instead of going out to a bar or going to the package store in town, if they want a glass of wine or if they want a drink, they can get the beverage right there in their own room. And in terms of the benefit to the public, I think it benefits the public and even the neighbors because these people, these guests of ours aren't going to be walking down to Payne's to get one drink, or they're not going to be walking in town to the package store to pick up a case of beer. These are people that are going to be staying in a very nice place with a very high rate, the type of tourists that we want in this community, and they're going to be enjoying a glass of wine or a split bottle of wine in their room. We don't make a lot of money on this service at the Manasees, but it's a great amenity to have for your guests. If the weather's inclement and they don't want to go out, they want to have a drink in the room, just like most of us enjoy in our own homes. It's possible with this type of license. It's not a public, they're not serving the public, they're just serving the guests that are already staying there at the inn. So I think that there is a public benefit, and I would, even as a competitor, I would support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Wait, could I just ask you a question while you're up there?
Yes, Molly?
So just to clarify, you're saying that they are serving themselves.
Correct.
They are not being served by
Yes.
anyone?
They're not
It's
being
just a
served by anyone.
fridge.
Yeah, it's like a mini fridge. And we have a few options. There's not a lot of options, but we try to select things that people, from the area that people would, as part of their vacation. Like we have local wines from Secana Vineyards, and along with like local snacks and stuff that are part of like our boutique hotel experience. And I know the DBICs are looking to do the same thing. And in terms of, seeing if they're going to be good neighbors or not this summer, I think we have a good experience with that family being great neighbors and being wonderful business people. So I don't think you need to wait a summer to see if this family that's been here for decades, invested millions of dollars, are going to be good neighbors or not. I think they've proven themselves to be good neighbors. Thank you.
I can tell you're itching to.
Yeah, my name is Eric Nelson and
Hi,
I
Eric.
represent the trustees of
Great.
East Avenue 589-1589. And what I see is that this is a precedent-setting situation in the mixed zone where we don't have alcohol being served currently. And I don't think that it provides any benefit to the island because, as Paul said, they can go down to the Redbird, get something. They can go to one of the other establishments and get a drink. And it's really not that long of a walk anywhere from that four corners of ocean and beach. So I really don't see that it benefits anything.
Thank you.
Millie, maybe you can help me out here. So we're looking for, there's these two elements that we have to meet in order to open up into consider hearing it, correct?
Yeah. Right. So, and so you need to be proving that there is just cause. And you need to also be proving that the community at large will benefit.
And that's in order to be able to have a hearing on the license.
Correct.
itself.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, I'll make another motion then, to grant the out of time relief. Because I think there was enough conversation about an original license on time. This is a building that has not yet opened, so it is now ready to be opened. We did grant one out of time just recently. And I think that when we talk about liquor in the mixed use, I mean, what Paul just said was anyone sitting in their house having a cocktail is consuming liquor. This is a very limited license. So I'll make that motion just so that we could move to a more robust discussion altogether.
There's a second? I'll second. All right, this is on the granting of relief A and B under item 1. Motion's been made and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Keith,
Yeah, okay.
I guess I'd like to ask Nick, does he think what we put out?
Hmm?
You know, kind of, you know, I want to move to the next, I'd like to move to that next level. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure
Okay.
we're hitting that benchmark that he said we need to hit. So we just
Yeah.
don't get ourselves jammed up.
Thank you, Bill. And my only suggestion would be just, Nancy, not to put you on the spot again. I was making notes with respect to your motion. If you could, if appropriate, add to, if you could address the benefit to the community at large.
Oh, okay. I would say that this is, you know, a brand new establishment. I haven't been inside of it, but it looks beautiful outside. I think it would bring a benefit to the community, just as one more aspect, of what they're going to be presenting on that property. Does that qualify?
It does. Thank you. And again, not to put you on the spot, Nancy. Bill, thanks for that clarification, Bill. I'm comfortable.
Any other questions, Bill? Tristan, Molly? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So it's McComb, Dodge, Stover, yes. Did you vote no, Molly? Tristan, no. Okay. I just wanted for Millie's purposes, that's all.
I just see this as a difference from the one that we entertained a couple
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago. But I do want to say, not uncomfortable hearing this at all in the right time frame. I just don't think that we're,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Molly.
yeah, I know I feel
wasn't
on the
sure what-
spot, sorry,
I'm
but.
sorry, that's my fault. I just wanted to
you know,
make sure that I didn't.
I'm not uncomfortable hearing this in the right time frame. I feel like out of time.
Yep.
Not loving
So the
it.
motion passes, and now we're on to item 2, holding public hearing. Can I have a motion to convene public hearing, please? Second. All
Second.
those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Public hearing is open. Anybody? Yes. I saw Frank. Did you want to speak as well, Frank? No. Okay.
Thank you for your previous motion. And with regard to now the hearing on the merits of the license itself, my experience is when you're looking at these licenses, you're looking at the fitness of the operator and whether they are fit to hold the license. And I would say that you're not going to have an operator who is more fit than the DBA's family. They have had the Spring House for 30 years. They had a restaurant in North Providence for a significant period of time. They've had several restaurants in Providence. All have been operated with no problems, no violations, no problems. That's a difficult thing to do. Even the best of restaurants, liquor service establishments can have issues. So I would say that I think that the DBAs are very equipped to hold this license. They have run all their other establishments responsibly, and I know that they will run this one responsibly as well. They will have staff on premises. They will be able to monitor where people are going. And as you've seen, you do have another one of these licenses here, and that has been operated without issue. And there's no doubt in my mind that the DBAs can operate this one without a problem.
I actually agree with that. I have no doubts about the DBAs and what they're likely to do. To me, the most compelling argument is one that was made a few minutes ago, which is this is an area of town that does not currently have any liquor service. And Lord knows we have plenty of places to go and have a beer or a cocktail. And that precedent where we could theoretically have 3 similar, though, I could have 3 similar situations in that neighborhood. Because there's not a lot of, there may be qualitative difference, in terms of the accommodation or whatever, but we have potential that, that's one of the things that I feel like we have to weigh,
I totally understand that. And what I will say is that, again, I think part of the reason why this is something that is doable is, one, the nature of the license. It's limited. We're not talking about a restaurant or a bar where there's going to be entertainment or music or anything like that. So I do think there is a way to control the externalities of the liquor service. Secondarily, we're also talking about a limited number of people. We're talking about 10 rooms. So it's not like we're talking about a large scale hotel. It is a manageable number. They do have adequate staff, and just, I don't want to be the only one delivering. We do have the operator here. So if you have any questions or want to have any concerns addressed, he's here. He's happy to answer any of those questions. So, I don't want to, you don't have to take my word for it. But I do think that the good thing here is it's not a situation where you're introducing a full-blown liquor license into an area that hasn't had it before. You're introducing a limited license to a limited capacity of people in an area. So I would actually suggest that it's a good stepping stone. Not to suggest that it's going to go any further than this, but if you're going to introduce something, this is limited in nature, and it's something that I think is manageable.
Bill? Millie, can you explain again on this type of license? What I heard was it's only liquor served in the rooms, is that correct?
Yes, it's basically like a mini bar license.
So I couldn't in the lobby have a bar set up or go?
No, you could
get
not.
Beer or anything like that?
There's a specific language in the law that speaks to service in the rooms. It doesn't mean that you couldn't take that out, sit on the porch or something like that, but the actual service and purchase, the bar has to be in the rooms.
So liquor can't be delivered to the room. It has to be within the room itself.
It cannot.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm sure we have others who'd like to speak.
Thank you. Again. So I have a couple points to make, but the threshold one I think is the most important, is what your ordinance and what our state liquor law that Millie referred to requires for a BH license. And that is that it only be issued to a licensed hotel. I don't know how we overcome that when this applicant has a rooming house license that's currently up for renewal. So I think that it's appropriate in a hotel setting when you have the staff and the oversight for this kind of license. I don't know what the applicant proposes to do in this setting, but I spoke to both Mr. Hausman and Frank, as I mentioned. And listen, Frank's wonderful, but this isn't a popularity contest. This is ensuring safety and peace and quiet and the ability of the community to absorb a new liquor license. And I know you've had your troubles over the years, and I'm not suggesting that this is a red flag. I am suggesting, as some of the neighbors have, that it's a slippery slope. And we need to be careful before going down that slope that A, we're all following the law, and we're putting all the applicants on an equal footing. So he doesn't have a license for a hotel. I would respectfully suggest, I don't think this is in my letter, that it is therefore prohibited under Rhode Island General Laws 3-7-7.1, which is the BH license. In the very first paragraph, it is only issued to a licensed hotel.
So can I interrupt you for 1 second? And this is where I might need Nick's help, because I did contact the Department of Business
Regulation.
Business regulations. Sorry, thank you. I'm losing my language. And they did answer me on that. I did bring that up to them. And so they did answer that the state of Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation considers an inn, a hotel, or a motel as the same type of business entity, and that all are eligible to obtain a Class B at H liquor license if the municipality wishes to grant it. And then they go on to send me their definition, that a hotel means any facility offering a minimum of one room for which the public may, for a consideration, obtain transient lodging. The term hotel shall include hotels, motels, tourist homes, tourist camps, lodging homes, and inns. And it goes on a little bit longer than that. But Nick, my question for you is, if we have a separate terminology in our ordinance, does that cause us to run up against a problem?
So first and foremost, the short answer is no. Licensing of liquor is controlled by Title III of the general laws. Title III does not provide a definition for hotel. When a definition is not provided by statute or ordinance, we normally look to the plain and ordinary meaning of that word. A simple search of the definition of hotel is an establishment that provides lodging and usually meals, entertainment, and various personal services for the public. So without a definition in state law, by way of example, I wouldn't suggest that you look to your zoning ordinance for the definition of a hotel. That wouldn't trump state law, and it also wouldn't provide guidance to an interpretation of state law. So if Molly, that's the guidance that you got from DBR and how they interpret and enforce this, basically with a broad definition of hotel, I would echo that.
Thanks.
So thank you for that. We're still drawing a distinction because of the nature of the operation. Your town has only issued the rooming house license. The operators have acknowledged they don't intend to have that kind of staff on the premises. So I would respectfully disagree that we can use a standard definition. And so that'll bring me to my next point, because this class license says that they'll only be sold at certain times in the room of a registered guest, et cetera. But in fact, there's going to be no way to enforce this. Again, I tried to work with the applicants because we're neighbors to try to figure out what was going to happen. And they acknowledge, we're not going to have the people here. There's no way for us to control how the alcohol will be consumed. So I've come up with a scenario, a likely scenario for your consideration, okay? They're high-end guests, and I said this to my colleague earlier. Bunch of young girls, 20-somethings, and little Susie's getting married, and they're out for their bachelorette party. They arrive at 11 o'clock in the morning. They go to their hotel. They put on their bathing suits, and they immediately go to the bar at Ballard's. They're at the beach, but they're drinking. They come home for lunch. They get changed, they go out and have lunch, they're drinking. You see what's happening here. Then they go to the clubs after dinner. Now they're back at the inn and all the clubs are closed. There's nothing to prevent them from going into that little cooler and cleaning it out and sitting on the deck next to residential properties and partying all night long. There's no way to manage that. I went to the building today and I looked at my client's premises and the orientation of their property. It's an older house. It's been fixed up, but it faces due north. The property of the inn it's angled more northwest, maybe 300 degrees. So what's going to happen is those ladies, my imaginary, but maybe real intoxicated ladies, are going to be sitting on the deck at 2 o'clock in the morning, partying next to my client's master bedroom, deck, and guest rooms. So I would respectfully suggest that there's no way that you can put conditions on this application that would ensure that it won't be disruptive to the neighbors. But I would also suggest that there already is, as the young man said, one BH license available in town. So how is it that we can now ask for a second license to be issued when only one is listed on the town ordinance for the number of licenses that'll be issued? So I think that is also an impediment to considering this application for tonight. I'd respectfully request that you deny the application, or alternatively, let them table it, let them be good neighbors for 5 months and come back in September. Thank you.
Can I ask the Mario or Frank? Can you stop service at 11?
I would defer to us.
I'm under the weather, so I don't want to go too close to the mic. My name is Frank DeVies. There's a couple of comments that the attorney previously said. I've never spoken to this woman about this business model, our plan, our staffing, our intent. I'm sorry? I've never spoken to you about that. I don't want them to understand. I want them to get over there. We don't know how many people we're gonna staff. We're hoping we staff a lot of people. We run tight operations when we don't like to jeopardize our neighbors, especially with liquor consumption. We try to make sure we do all the right things. And yes, we do have the right to refuse or take away the liquor at any point in time. So we could take it away at 10 o'clock at night and control it that way.
So my question was a little different than that. Could you, I have no idea how these mini bars work. I'm always afraid to touch them because I feel like.
Me too.
Sure.
Help it off. I just don't come near them, but.
I think
But
ultimately,
can you, is there a central switch, for example, that blocks the mini bars?
I don't know that answer. I know they do have magnetic. I'm not gonna commit to anything right now on how we're gonna operate, so I don't wanna mislead in any way. But I know they do have components where if they take the bottle off, we know by weight someone took the consumption. 'Cause we wanna make sure
Yes,
no one's
right,
feeling
right,
it all.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Yeah, yes.
And I mean, we're gonna control obviously and make sure everyone's respectful at all times. That is not our intent. And basically, we're going for a bullet point on a premium in on Block Island.
Yes.
We're not trying to intoxicate the neighborhood, or she was suggesting people in bathing suits after partying all day. That is not our intent. That is not our clientele. So I don't want to mislead the conversation and stay on path there. So thank you. very much.
Frank, before you go,
Yeah.
do you plan on having someone on site 24 hours a day?
Again, for me to say we're gonna have 2 people attend, I don't want to say that on record. At the Spring House operating, we do have someone on call all the time, and the main phone goes to the desk that is on call. So yes, so someone in our operation would be on call 24/7. They're on cameras, yes.
So can I just ask really quick too?
Sure.
So the outdoor spaces, I haven't been over there. It does look beautiful when you drive by, but the outdoor spaces that you have for guests, is there like a fire pit area
There
or
is.
now what's your plan for when that's turned off? Like what?
Well, definitely, we're gonna have control. We're talking to on island contractors right now on how we could do that. It is gonna be on a key where we hold the key, I believe. So again, I don't wanna mislead me. I've been to hotels where there's a switch and a timer and a lockbox. That's probably what we're gonna do. So
I guess what I'm asking is because that's a concern that was brought up,
it
that there
would
would be,
not be allowed after a certain point at night.
Okay.
At 9 o'clock, I think is Block Island, it's the quiet hour anyway. So. we won't
right,
go
like at the
beyond that.
National, they turn them off at a
Correct.
certain point and then they become less of an attraction and people go
Correct.
somewhere else. But
Correct.
I just am wondering if that's in your planning as well.
Yes, to control it, yes, timely manner.
As it is now, though, if a guest comes to the Spring House, can they bring their own bottle of wine into the room?
I'm not sure the legality of it, but we try to make sure that they do not bring bags, especially if they're underage and drinking. We definitely control. Nowhere on our property and public spaces are they allowed to consume their own alcohol. We control service at all times, so.
And that's your intention with
Correct.
this new one?
That's why basically to control the consumption at this hotel, it was just an area, people bring booze all the time. It's just an avenue to say, oh, they do have options to offer alcohol. So I don't have to bring a liter of vodka by myself and but again, I don't want to generalize on what we're serving or who we're serving. But to answer the question, we do not allow outside alcohol on our premises. But if they do it, I'm, right, sure.
If I may just make one more comment. In today's day and age with short-term rentals and Airbnbs, effectively everywhere.
It's only Frank. I got another question for you.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
No, so all I would say is that there will be more oversight here than if you were to rent an Airbnb where you get a lockbox, you open it up, stock the fridge with as much liquor as you want. So I would just ask you to keep that in mind, and there are even the property next door that we've heard about, I believe is on the Airbnb, the short-term rental registry. So they can be buying liquor and serving themselves all night if they want as well.
So this is a challenging question, I'm sure, but Frank, do you think there's a world in which we could say, look, take 2 weeks, talk to each of the abutting property owners and see whether there is a circumstance, for example, if the technology is that the mini bars are centrally shut off at, I'm making this up, 11 p.m. and they don't get turned on until 3 in the afternoon. I'm totally making this up, but it just strikes me that this, from the initial application to now, has cried out for that kind of conversation. I think, my sense from what your family has done there is that it has really been a pretty dramatic visual upgrade. I actually, when it was under construction, did a tour, and it's going to be quite nice. But you see where we are. We have this precedent-setting application, which, in my opinion, invites more intense scrutiny than it would be if it were, whatever the pizza place downtown. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering whether you think that's possible.
Respectfully, the last meeting we were in about the initial license, we were going for a full class.
Yes,
license, And the
right.
neighbors were not happy. They came in full force and they were ready to beat us
Yeah.
up. And I'm the
Oh,
one
believe
that
me,
sat in
we
that
remember.
corner. And I heard about a BH license because, like you, I never knew what it even was.
Yes.
And I didn't want to scare the neighbors and say, we're going to serve the masses. And
Yes.
so the Manasees kind of enlightened me on
Right.
this is basically what we're trying to do and
Yes.
not try to intoxicate the community. We're trying to control consumption and affair and make it an amenity that it draws to our. We spent a lot of money in this.
I know.
We're trying
Yeah.
to market it the best we can and give something to everyone that's special. So
Mhm.
that was part of our package. So, but to answer your question, I'm the one that kind of said, let me step it back and not try to scare them. And we did try talking, and obviously, I'm not sure why they're so concerned about it. And she keeps on saying to be a good neighbor, to be a good neighbor. I promise you, I will make sure that we will not put anyone at harm, and we will respectfully make sure. And we're right across from the police department. I want everyone to remember that too. So if anyone is causing, out of, acting out, I wouldn't do it there. So, but so we already had conversation. I'm the one that kind of peeled it back, and it sounds like they don't want to work together on my side. So, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got two quick things.
Yeah.
Maybe to Millie or Nick, that BH, we do have one. How does that work? If we only, one license is
First
available?
motion, we raised the cap. We
Okay.
decided
Yeah,
to waive
the
cap.
relief was addressed.
Yeah.
Very good. And then the second question I had, and I don't know if Paul would be willing to answer this or not. How many rooms, how many rooms actually take advantage of it? Had any problems on the, say at the Manasees? Certainly don't have to, but if you, because it's kind of a new territory.
Yeah, sure, Bill. We thought it was going to be, a big economic hit, and it's really not. There's not as many people that take advantage of it as you would think, but it's a nice amenity to have for the guests that do want to take advantage of it. And we don't have like a lock on the fridges or anything at a certain time. And honestly, we've never had an issue with complaints or people drinking late or any problems like that. So.
Do you put Well, obviously, this is two separate businesses. but
Yeah.
Verification, do you put like only a certain amount? I mean, how does that work?
There's like a red option, a white option, and either like a Prosecco or like a white Zin or something in the middle. And then there's, some local beers. And then, of course, there's non-alcoholic beverages as well.
It's more of a market, I mean, a hospitality asset, as well. Checking into the hotel, welcome Ricky and Lucy to the, Inn at Spring House. There was alcohol in the room if you choose to do so. I mean, that it's just part of our hospitality of it as well. So, and it means a lot to me to make sure we give every possible, amenity. So.
Can I just ask something I didn't think of until Paul said it, but like, would you consider also having non-alcoholic options in the selection?
I'm not
You're meaning
sure.
like if somebody is like, I just want a Coke or
Of-
a ginger ale,
Sure.
right? Like, I don't know. I'm
I-
just thinking that might be an important
we would
thing.
definitely have
I
soda.
I didn't think of that until you said it, but I don't know.
And then one other thing too, it also allows us, if people are celebrating like a special occasion and they want something special in the room, like it allows us to put like the champagne or the wine in the fridge for them when they get to the room, so it's there. So that's been beneficial as well.
Millie, what license did we have at Payne's Harbor View in the past?
So that was initially a BV license. It was granted without the appropriate zoning, outside of zoning. And so there was then some negotiations, an amendment was made to zoning to allow that, an inn to be there for, get a special use permit for the restaurant, which is where the special use permit came from. Since that, I think they only carried that license for a couple of years, and they haven't had that in many years.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess, I'm having a problem differentiating sitting in a house, having a cocktail at around 5 or 6 o'clock at night or watching the sunset, and being in an inn under those circumstances. And personally, I'm much happier that it's an inn and not a hotel. I mean, an inn is, what, you have 10 rooms? Yeah.
Maximum capacity, we're looking at 20 people. I mean, that's our business model. It's all king beds rather. So it's no more than, we're going for no more than 20 people.
I just don't associate it with a rowdy crowd. And I think that we could use this summer to just test that theory out. I don't see it as precedent setting in any way because a license has to be renewed come November. So, that's just my opinion.
Anybody else? Anybody in the public?
So if we did
Sure,
issue this
sure.
license, they would, like you said, in November, they would have to reapply, correct?
They would apply, right?
Yeah.
Right. So in some ways, like Nancy just said, that would be somewhat of a trial period with that we would have some control on the renewal.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alex,
any more
yeah.
questions?
No,
Okay, all right, thank
I'm
you.
sure we'll ask you back up maybe. Go ahead, Charlotte.
So, my husband and I and the parish family, which live close by, we submitted a letter, which really definitely focused on what we thought was an issue concerning when you read the description of the license, that it was for a licensed hotel. And, so I've heard that's been kind of fleshed out a little bit more. But I do feel like in our own zoning, in our own community, we treat hotels and inns differently. And even in where we are in the mixed use zone, if this is something that is more of a hotel-ish type thing, which I understand the Manassas has. Hotels are not permitted use in the mixed use zone and inns are by special use permit. And in terms of precedent setting, what I see is sort of other ones deciding, oh, we can get one and we can get one, sort of slippery slope of everyone sort of getting, a lot of inns getting these licenses. And being, you know, in where we are, it's very residential. And all it takes is, I mean, I know where I live, you know, in mixed use zone, and, you know, we can be tolerant, but all it takes is just some people coming back from the bars at night and out on their balcony in their bar voice with some extra drinks that they probably didn't need anyway. So I'm just, you know, just from our perspective, I just
Yep.
wanted to say that. So in terms of precedent setting, that's what I'm kind of concerned about.
What about this idea, Charlotte, of of having hours?
If you can institute it, sure. Yeah, but I mean, also like fire pits, yes, you know, people are gonna take their wine down there and hang out their fire pits and stay after, you know. I don't know, if you could, like by 10 o'clock or something. I'm in
Mhm.
bed by 9, so.
I know, that's, I go to bed then too.
Yes, if I can. Anyway, you know, and I also see that it's something that we didn't necessarily think was allowable and also not available if there's only one license and the Manassas has it, so.
Yeah.
And so then you're gonna, if this gets going, you can see tons of them,
Mhm.
so, anyway.
Yep.
So,
Thank you, Charlotte. Yep.
Could I speak to that since we're talking about the Manassas indirectly here? The Manassas is not in the commercial zone. It's a non-conforming pre-existing use in a mixed zone. So just to clarify that, but I mean, you also live next to a fuel depot. There's a power company down the road, and you live across from the public safety complex. So there's a lot going on in your zone too that's not all residential.
The thing about the zoning that I will say I've finally learned over the course of 5 years dealing with liquor issues is that what Molly articulated as DVR's rules around this are what end up prevailing. In our experience, notwithstanding what we may want, DBR carries the day on what they allow where and what the definitions are. It's, I'll leave aside any political comment associated with that, but it is, it's, it can be very frustrating.
I mean, I definitely want to say that I really feel for the neighbors here because this would not, I would be super stressed out if this was my neighborhood. We all would be. But that's where the difficulty lays, right? And I realize that the cap always looks like the cap till it isn't the cap anymore. And that, you know, we had that discussion a few weeks ago about, do we lower the cap? I was the only one who wanted to lower the cap. So everybody has a different view on that, right? But yeah, I just want to say, it's not that I haven't heard you guys. I read your letter. That's why I contacted DBR with that question. So it is very frustrating. If I see something positive about this license over the other license that they applied for and withdrew, it's that this will not increase the traffic. And I do want to say that when that building was going on, the parking over there was nuts. And it was really hard to drive around, the workmen and that kind of gave me at least a sense of like, whoa, if you had a situation where people were coming in here for drinks and for food, not tenable. The parking is a no-go. For this, your guests are your guests, whether they bring a car or not. They're not bringing another car because they can buy a bottle of wine in the room. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, it's not going to, so I guess I'm just saying if I see one positive of this license over the other, for sure, it's that it doesn't increase the traffic or the parking for the neighbors. Because I do think, again, as neighbors, the parking and the traffic, it is a stressor. It changes your life. You know, when you have people parking on your grass and parking on the side of the road and with their, you know, halfway into the road and all of that. And we all see that all summer. So anyway, I'm going to take that away as the one ray of sunshine there.
Could I make one more point? Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, I do want to address, and thank you for reminding me, I neglected to say the foundation for one of the objections, and that is a concern over liability. Even not intoxicated people. The consumption of alcohol increases funny behavior, improper behavior. We all know this. So because we are hard by, just within a few feet of this operation, our concern is an intoxicated person will trespass and be injured and then will be sued. So yes, we have concerns about the activity on the lot, but we also have concerns about, being dragged into things because of negligence that is no fault of our own.
So I'm reminded of, I'm sorry, thank you. Molly's the only one who was here when we did this. But I'm reminded of what we did. It's probably several years ago, a few years ago now, with Persephone's when they applied for an F. Was it an F, Millie? F1? We did a thing with them that I wonder whether we could try here, which is we gave them one. We assessed. There were no concerns about what they were doing on Dodge, and then we gave them for the rest of the summer, if I recall correctly. Molly, do you recall that? And I wonder whether this is a situation where, I'm just throwing this out there, where we grant a license that has particular moments. You prove it in the first 30 days, and then you come back the way that we did with Persephone. I was trying to find a way to thread this needle with neighbors who are experiencing something new. Go ahead.
Just from the perspective of the applicant, we are perfectly okay with proving ourselves, getting a certain period of time, doesn't have to be all the way till September, just a couple months, see how it goes, bring us back in.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. So
It's not that sick, don't worry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So, so conditional licenses are something that they've done in Providence, and I think we've done in North Providence as well. We would be agreeable to that if you wanted to give us 60 days from when we open, see how it goes, bring us back in, and we're perfectly agreeable to proving ourselves because we think it's going to go fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Frank.
Sorry, I think 60 days is too small of a time period, especially with volume and everything else. I think the season would prove itself. Respect, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. And then come and reapply, obviously, everyone does that, based on our performance.
So that wouldn't match what I was trying to accomplish. Just
Okay.
I get where you're coming from. And again,
What time period were you?
so here's I'll just give you what we ended up doing with Persephone's. They have those Thursday night on Dodge Street, I think it is. And they came. We have what's an F1 license, which is sort of a one-off kind of festival. In fact, I think we have one on our agenda tonight for Concert Fest. And they wanted to do one every Thursday night from 4th of July to Labor Day. I'm just making that up. And that stretch of Dodge Street, it was a family environment. We had no one serving liquor there. Obviously, the Redbirds there, but no one was serving liquor. And I think the council had similar kind of, this is a precedent. What do we, And we did a thing where I think we gave them like their first two. And then and asked Paul, I don't think it was Paul then, whoever the police chief was at that point, to check in, give us active reports, check in with the neighbors, I think we actually just sort of unofficially, because God knows we're always wandering around here someplace, people checked in with us. And it worked well. It sort of, and then they came back and they had a record established. And since then, actually, it's been easy because they do it right. And I'm not, I have no idea where my colleagues are. I'm just doing my own stream of consciousness on this as I try to think about, what is the way to get, to accomplish something like this that is respectful to the neighborhood. Uh, but also, I mean, I get it. You want people to be able to have a glass of wine or a beer when they come in.
I think that, if there was a 60-day check-in or something like that, it might be some comfort. I'm not concerned. I know the way they run the business, but I think if it gives comfort to the neighbors, if it's going to go that way, I think it's not unreasonable. And if I was running that operation as Frank was, and I'm so confident, 60 days doesn't matter, so I don't think that's a bad thing to entertain.
What do you guys think?
It can be a comfort, and if anything happens before those 60 days are up, there's also other options. I'm just
Mhm.
not anticipating that
No,
there's gonna be a.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Molly, what do you think about that approach here?
Yeah, I mean, being practical, 60 days puts us at like Memorial Day. So I don't know what we'd be looking
was thinking,
for in that timeframe, but I don't have a problem. Just maybe talking to the police chief to say, could you give us a heads up if there's any issues? And that would mean noise complaints from the neighbors as well. Like if there's additional noise, I'm thinking if anything that's going to be the problem,
Yeah.
right? And that might mean just managing something differently at the inn. But I am concerned about additional noise that would just mostly because that inn is arranged and built differently than the one that existed beforehand. So there's gonna be that, like, I get the stress on the neighbors. I want to be really, really sensitive to the stress on the neighbors. And I don't get the feeling that Frank isn't mindful of that at all, but it's a big deal to have a new thing. I mean, somebody built a new house next to me like 20 years ago, and I thought the world was coming to the end. So it's hard.
Yes, sir.
I'd still wager that, to your point about the parking, that is a busy intersection with yield signs and stop signs and crazy drivers coming up Beach Avenue. It's notorious speeding zone. But I'm
People
also,
aren't going to be coming to drink. There's not going to be a bar there.
well, they can't leave with their drinks too, or leave after they've been drinking.
Well, I
They
mean,
won't be driving away when they're after drinking at this venue. It's, there's the precedent side. There's also the litter side of things. People are going to be taking these things onto the property. I don't see how you keep them from taking them off the property as they're walking down to Payne's or walking downtown. Trash is going to end up in the bushes and the parks and everywhere else. And I just think it's not in that zone. It's predominantly residential. There's several venues already that are successful without the liquor side of things. And I think there's people you can market to that don't need to have the liquor experience. So just consider that.
thank you.
I'm also sensitive to the neighbors. On the same token, I'm also looking at, it's nice to see someone put up a building like that. It's a high end that has a local face attached to it. And that's not a corporation from the other end of it, that if we have a problem, the owner is going to be sitting in this room, not a representative for a corporation on the other side. I also, I'd probably feel much differently if this was, the BV license. So, and I remember when we had it down at, when it came up at Payne's, they wanted to do, I think it was sushi at the time and so forth. And that was bringing people in. I'm glad to see there's an avenue with the BV license, the BH license, because I think that if there isn't an option there, I think most people will bring a bottle of wine and they'll ask for ice and they'll have it from that end of it. And the reason I had asked about how much is in the room, it's not a matter of going down and, let's bring 12 people back. It sounds like the room, according to the way Paul has done it, and it sounds like you'd follow the same. It's a limited couple bottles of wine or whatever it might be, or water, soda, whatever. And so I think that to find a middle road, I think this type of license is, to me, it's kind of it's a compromise between being able to be able to service on that end, but also not open up the door to the issues that you had just mentioned about people coming up and there's an event and to that end of it. So that's the only reason I'm even entertaining, because of the type of license that is. If this was the BV, I personally wouldn't be at this point.
And can I just ask, if we're talking about 60 days or any time, you're not open yet, right?
That was actually what I was just asked, just for clarification. They are not open. My expectation is they're looking at potential June opening date. So I would just ask that if you can make part of your motion, the 6 days the clock would start running once they open. Or however you wanted to do it. But if you start it right now, we can come back, but they might still not be open.
I think 60 was just an arbitrary number, right? Keith? Yeah.
I guess this is for Franco, the attorney. So we're talking about the volume. So if there's a guest in the room and they consume everything that's in there, are they going to call staff and ask for it to be replenished, or is that not going to happen? Can they do that in that example?
Truthfully, I'm not.
Based on the weight.
I was gonna say.
Truthfully, again, I've been to a lot of hotels, a lot of nice hotels, I've always seen the minibar. I've never even personally used one, so I don't even know what this one entails. Honestly, truthfully. So for me to say they're gonna wipe it out, I hope not. And I don't think
So
so.
I guess that's my question to
So
you.
we're
Frank.
going
So
again
if it's
for
seven,
respectful clientele that's not wiping out the bar, but.
Yeah.
so you're just filling it once, and then that would be on the day change that you would be restocking it. You wouldn't,
Correct.
if there was a guest in there, you wouldn't refill it on request.
Again, for me to answer something, it depends on the time of day, how big the bottle is. I mean, those are things that I'm trying to learn too, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Millie, can I just ask a really practical question, or maybe, I don't know whether Paul would know the answer to this, that with the other liquor licenses, some of them are very specific to how the liquor can be purchased. Is this a wholesale or retail purchase for this? And
I'm not exactly sure on that. I'd have to look into that.
from a wholesaler? Okay, right, because the F license, they have to purchase from a retailer. Okay, I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that, and obviously it's gonna be stored in a locked room, right? Just clarifying.
So the two things I would like to see is that 60-day from open trial period and hours limited to 10 p.m.
When we say hours limited, does that mean they can't have it in the room after 10 p.m.?
No,
or
no,
has to be
there's
locked?
there's a central locking mechanism is what I thought I heard. No? Did I hear that wrong? Was that wishful thinking?
I don't think
Yes.
they.
Paul's nodding his
I don't
head.
think they presented, I don't think Frank has presented any
Why did I think?
anything that,
No, the fire pit we were talking about.
Oh, well.
yeah.
Well, how would we do that then? Because I someone who's rarely awake after 10 p.m. That one concerns me. Absolutely.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't think anybody can provide the answer to that, or it's going to be an answer that is that we can't lock it. But what I just discussed with Frank was one of the things I think that everybody's concerned about is what's going on outside. He is certainly agreeable to shutting down the outside area at 10, fire pit, whatever it is that's outside.
Okay.
So just to enlighten them, what you will do at the hotel is we have quiet hours from 12 to 5 a.m. We post it everywhere in the rooms and we have signs and that gives our staff, you know, a little help to say, by the way,
Yes.
it is with quiet hours and you need to go back to bed now. So it does help
Yep.
us enforce our policy. So that's what we do currently. So it'd probably be quiet hours. Again, I don't know how we're gonna lock something and go in their room at 10 o'clock at night and take something out. I think it'd be more of a disturbance rather
Yeah.
than.
Are those quiet hours going to be earlier at this location than you have at the other?
Whatever needs, sure. I was thinking 9 o'clock, quiet hours. 10.
Okay,
I think that's a step in the right direction
I
to,
agree.
to an olive branch with the neighbors.
Yeah. And I think it also ties into the, you know, the 60 days. I mean, it's either gonna be fine
Yeah,
or,
right.
you know, you adjust as you go
Yeah.
along and.
Can I just ask another question quickly, Frank? So do you have exterior speakers like around the fire pit area?
Truthfully, I think we did it for future use, just in case but we never hooked them up and we don't expect to do it. To answer your question, I think there is wire in there, but it's just inside. in the line.
But obviously, like if there were music, I mean, obviously you're not be blasting music, but if there were music, that would end at 9 o'clock
Of
as
course,
well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, we would
Okay.
obey all.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Nick, you got to help me make a motion here.
Sure, and you have me scrambling a bit, but I think I'm with you guys. So, it'll be a conditional motion to approve the license, subject to a 60-day review. At that time, it's my suggestion we review the application on the same standard that we're applying tonight as a new application. That gives the board authority to hear any and all testimony related to what's going on at that property, and you can decide whether or not you want to continue to allow them to have that license. So, conditional approval of the license, subject to a 60-day review, applying the same new application standard. My suggestion would be that we just see if that's acceptable to Attorney Martone in the audience.
With quiet hours beginning at 9 p.m.
Yes, and if that has Attorney Martone's approval, I think we're all on the same page.
You're in agreement.
Okay,
Thank you very
Do we
much.
have to lose the cap first or?
we did. In your first motion.
Oh, I did.
Congratulations.
In case they'll provide a point of contact, like we required with other licenses in case there's an issue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
I know with some of the other license, we've had the licensees provide a point of contact in case neighbors, whatever, there is an issue.
Yes, I think we do.
It might
that.
be the desk at the Spring House.
For a point of contact?
Yeah, so if there is a, a neighbor has a problem, but there's a point of contact, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll provide that to the clerk. And I just want to make sure the 60 days is from the date of opening.
Of
correct?
opening, yeah. So Millie, do you have that or do you need somebody sitting here to repeat it?
No, I have that. I have one or just two things. If Frank or attorney can get in touch with me the day that you open so that I can start that clock, please. Okay. And additionally, you did say there were with new application standards. I just want to confirm that that would not be subject to the advertising requirement, et cetera? Or would,
Yeah,
Am I
Nick, we
treating
wouldn't
it
have
like
to
a-
go through advertising for that again.
Yeah, it's and that's what's tough. And I always err on the side of caution when it comes to advertising because we're speaking about noticing the public, which is
Okay.
important. I know it's important to this board, but part of the problem tonight, Millie, is we don't have a firm date, 60 days out. Unless we can agree on one. I don't know the applicant's position on how firm their start date is. If we can figure out 60 days out, that's cleaner and we can simply continue this matter to that date certain.
We believe there's going to be a June opening date. I would request either the last meeting in August or the first meeting in September, just to,
That doesn't accomplish what we want.
no?
No, I think it needs to be in July.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my,
Yeah.
how about the first meeting last meeting in July or the first meeting
You
in
added a
August.
0 to the 16th.
Sorry, I did. I did. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say that if we want to put a date certain on it so we can avoid the advertising, we could do that.
Here's what I think, if you're doing a June 1 opening, I'd like to reconvene around July 15th, because then you will have the 4th of July, you will have had a couple of weddings. We get a sense, we hear from the neighbors about how all that's working. That seems a reasonable thing. So that would be basically 45 days from June 1st. Got that, Millie?
July 16th would be the interim meeting.
Okay. So I would be making a motion to continue it to what's the word? Conditionally approve 45 days from open a license with a stipulation that quiet hours begin at 9 p.m. for Class BH beverage license for 585 Hospitality LLC, stockholder Frank DBH Jr. doing business as Spring House in New Harbor, 585 Beach Ave, Plat 5, Lot 92.
And Keith, it'll be reviewed on the same standard as it is tonight, that being a new application.
And it'll be reviewed on the same standard as tonight, and that would be a new application.
Thank you.
How'd they do, Nick?
I think we made it.
Did you
Okay.
get the point of contact?
Oh, yes, with a point of contact for the clerk, if there are any concerns. Did I catch everything in that?
Yeah.
Millie, did I catch everything in that?
Yeah.
Do
I was just so we won't be continuing this to a date certain, but we will be, but I'll still we expect that it'll show up on the 16th, and I'll treat it as a new application at that time.
Is that the best way to do it?
That works fine.
I'm sorry. I don't know who's going to bear the cost of this, but we would request, if we're going to continue it to a date, we continue it to a date certain so that we do not have to re-advertise.
Yeah.
And continue this matter to July 16th. And is there a second? No second?
I'll second.
Second. Millie, I just want to make
Well-
sure we're,
I was gonna say, with Nick, without all the formality, can we have the applicant agree to the standard that we'll use without continuing and still treating it as a new applicant? That kind of gets confusing.
I think that's the standard we would apply anyway. We're in a bit of uncharted waters. I mean, I've done and seen conditionally approved applications in the past. There's not a lot of law on it, so I want to be as clear as possible so that we're all on the same sheet of music. God forbid there is an issue, there may be a different tone that night. So that is, in my opinion, the standard that should apply. I'm glad that we have the applicant's understanding that is the standard that will apply on that date. It's really a belt and suspenders approach that I'm suggesting.
that makes sense to you?
I don't know if does that solve the issue? It's a continuance, but it's going to be treated as.
I think it's important to get it right.
Yeah.
So let's, I want to make sure you're comfortable, Molly,
So
because you end up
we're-
administering. this.
Yeah, I think as Nick said, it's kind of,
I
this
say
is new
Molly?
territory,
No.
so we're continuing this to a date certain for review, July 16th. And at which you will be using the standards of like the review of a new application, as opposed, if, just so everyone is clear,
yeah.
as opposed to us treating it as a new application, as you're giving it the standards of a new application in its review. Is that accurate?
Nick, that was my question. Can we, does that satisfy you? And,
Yeah, I mean, it does. It's been noticed. Anybody who is interested in the application is here tonight or had noticed to be here tonight. We granted the application. We can continue the matter to that date certain. It'll be not advertised in the paper, but it'll be advertised subject to open meetings at that time.
I'll second that.
Any?
Yes, actually, Keith, I think you've done a good job with the conversation around this. I think also with this grace period, it really gives the applicant time to demonstrate the public good, and the neighbors will be afforded that time if any issues do arise. This council at this present time is a no vote, but I just wanted to add that. And I do think that you run a very good operation.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Tristan. Any others? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Nope.
Opposed, no. I think that's 4-1. Thank you, Millie. Thank you for your patience. Treading new territory.
So this
item-
I'll lead off on number 3.
Yes,
So this is the second year that we've had this request, and I think looking at the applicants, one of the main items on the purpose of the event, I think we're kind of muddying the water here with the Block Island School, and I just wonder if we could have one event without alcohol, and I put that to you folks at the table.
this is on the F1
The F1, and then I also.
or
Yep.
Concert Fest. Yep.
Concert Fest. And then I'd also like to add that I thought last year, I thought it was just beer and wine. And then I noticed this year, which I could be mistaken, but it's also other mixed drinks.
One of you guys, the applicant? Get up here.
I'm the killer of
Greetings,
fun.
everybody. My name's Cameron Greenlee. I'm here representing Concert Fest. Thanks for considering our application for the F1 again this year. We actually were asked for the first time ever to apply for it last year in 2024 with Paul Dean's approval, Chief Dean's approval, and everything went off without a hitch.
And last year, if I recall correctly, the permit required, or your conversations with Paul, honestly, I can't remember, Cam, that the alcohol be in a separate place and that you used wristbands?
Yep, correct. There's a cordoned off beer garden that essentially
Gotcha.
is a square rectangle area. We have volunteer security stands at the entrance to that. We also have DOT certified, volunteers that are checking IDs. And usually 3 to 4 bartenders on staff, making sure everything operates smoothly. But so to be specific, it's an area about maybe 20 feet by 30 or 40 feet, some seating areas, and then a bar at the very back of it. And it's all roped off.
And then the service is also 7 hours?
No, it doesn't start usually until the afternoon, 2 o'clock. I think our event will start at 12 and goes till 7. We've asked for the extension to 8 o'clock just to make sure everybody's off site by that point and get everybody out of there. But service of alcohol doesn't start usually until 1 or 2 o'clock. Ending when the festival ends at 7 o'clock. Yep, firmly. Yeah, that doesn't continue.
So 6 hours.
Correct. Yeah.
So the changes that we made, well, they weren't really changes. It was a new location, right?
It was a new location. Yep, correct.
So, but the structure that we had where you have people checking coolers so no outside alcohol be allowed. If anyone wants to drink, they're drinking in the beer garden. No one under 21 is allowed in the beer garden.
Correct.
They're going to have wristbands. Is that new that there's hard alcohol? I don't recall last year's application. So,
Yeah, well, again, so last year was the first year that we were required to apply for the F1.
Right.
And before that, we were always operating under, previously,
Like
businesses
Hero
that already had
Right.
catering licenses, yeah.
Oh, right. Do you intend to offer something other than beer and wine this year?
I'm trying to remember if we offered, I think we did offer, hard alcohol last year, I believe. I know for sure this year we have, potential sponsorship with Sons of Liberty, which is a spirit, distilling company and brewery that's right over on the other side in South County. But we haven't gotten to specific conversations with them yet about what they're intending to provide. But yes, last year I recall that we were serving hard alcohol as well as beer and wine.
I'll attempt it. I don't know if I'm going to get the support, but I'm in favor of the concert. I would make a motion to deny the license for beer, wine, and alcohol, mixed drinks, or whatever it is.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes. It does seem like an awfully long period of time, 12 to 8, to be having, especially Tristan, if you have, how about like 4 to 8 or?
Yeah, so the correction, not till we have a hard cutoff at 7 PM, which is when the event is scheduled to end, but we have, we're considering till 8 o'clock to make sure that everybody's off site. But alcohol stops being served at 7 PM, period, and everybody's outside of the beer garden.
Hey, Cam, what's, this is on June 22nd, right?
Correct.
Can I ask you something? Paul Dean is not here.
Correct.
He's away on vacation.
Mhm.
I would really like to hear from Paul Dean about what the experiences were last year, how it could be improved, what was maybe over the top, and I'm wondering if you would be okay if we continued this to a future meeting in the next, few weeks or so, just so that we can have that input. People feel that way, but I really, I really think part of the reason it was successful last week is that you guys and Paul really engaged.
Mhm.
And it seemed, I didn't hear any, like typical Black on. I didn't hear any complaints.
Yeah, sure.
That's
And-
that's what I stand.
And also, just as an FYI, we've been in touch with Paul. We're currently in touch with Paul. We have a
Terrific.
text message with
Yes.
Paul. So we have
Great.
sort of his unofficial
Great.
approval to do what we did last year, the same this year.
I mean, I'll just say I have no problem with this application other than I think it would be a good idea to narrow the time down. I remember things did go well last year. It was a change. It was a new location. I drove past that day a couple times. I do think, so sunset that night is at 8:23. So having it go until 8 is pushing it just a bit.
No,
Like,
Sorry, ends at 7. So.
The application says 8. That's why we're hung up.
Okay, and the only reason we included that was a buffer to make sure everybody's off-site by 8 o'clock, no later than that.
yeah.
But the
liquor
music
service would end.
at 7
early.
PM.
Yeah.
Yep, and music stopped at 7 PM, and we're essentially at that point ushering people off the property.
So service ends at 7.
And I
And
can't
it
say
does- I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong, it does say that 12 to 7. Says the
fine.
event is 12 to 8.
Oh,
Sorry, I was reading
gotcha. Sorry, I didn't read it closely.
My Nuji input on the application is that where it says, does the property have town water and sewer? You've said yes, but it doesn't,
Does not, no. But we,
So-
yep.
which doesn't affect the rest of the
I didn't
application,
fill out
but
the application.
the answer is no there.
The alcohol, do the proceeds to that go towards, is that by the person running it, or how does that work?
And I'm not fully equipped to answer that question, but the way we've done it in the past is that everything up to their cost gets covered.
Yeah.
And last year specifically, we did not request any sponsorships from alcohol provider, producer. We purchased all of our alcohol at retail, which is stipulated by that license. This would be a new venture. We've had it in the past. We had Revival Brewing, we've had Sons of Liberty, we've had a number at Newport Storm for a number of years. We would be getting back into the sponsorship arena, if you will, this year
Gotcha.
when it comes to Sons of Liberty.
I'm agree with you, Molly. I actually don't have a problem with this. I think, last year, I was really, pleased with, how well this worked with you guys and Paul. I think, so I mean, we have a motion on the floor to deny it. I would be a no on that. I think I'm prepared to approve it.
Keith, you're just voting on whether, on that motion.
Tristan made a motion to deny.
Right, so we're gonna take a vote on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Nope.
Opposed? No.
No.
So I would make a motion to approve the application for an F1 liquor license for Concert Fest. Provided, as the application says, that the applicants continue to work with Paul Dean and New Shoreham Police Department. Is there a second?
Yep,
So-
second.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I just,
In
discussion.
You just, because did you say before that you wanted Paul Dean to come to us,
Well,
or did you want him to meet with?
I'm happy either way. It's very clear, I think, from Cam that they're working with Paul anyway, which is.
We're already in touch.
So.
I like the fact that, I mean, I agree with where Tristan's going
Yeah.
on this. I think, Lemonade Stand has a liquor license, I get it. But I think that, I like the fact that you made the area, the beer garden, whatever you call it, is controlled from that end of it. I think those are, and, I really like it to be a concert fest that has some beer as opposed to a beer fest that has some music. So.
Oh, yeah.
And you're making that effort by doing that. So I think that's good.
And I still wish it would, the timeframe was not noon to 7. I mean, like even 2 or 3 to 7.
And sorry, I wasn't making that clear because I'm not bringing the specifics on that, but last year we did not start serving alcohol when the gates opened at 12. We didn't start serving alcohol, I want to say, until 2 o'clock, but I'll verify
So
that.
can we put that in the motion?
We
Till
can.
7?
I would amend my motion to say liquor service beginning at 2 and ending at 7.
Yeah.
Molly, you're.
And this is on the 22nd, right?
Correct, yeah, Sunday the 22nd.
Okay, because race week starts the 23rd. So,
Molly, would you amend your second?
sure.
Consistent with what I just said. Thank you.
You just added the times.
I just added the times.
2 to,
Anything else? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Be sure to mark Tristan down as a no, please. All right, can I have a motion thank you, Cam.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the License Commissioners? Second? All those-
3 minutes?
Yeah, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Nice
And
have
a
it.
3-minute
We're just going to
recess.
take a 3-minute break.
liquor, close the clicker, yeah. Yes.
That was just so much fun, wasn't it? Did you watch it? I just, that hug between Paige Beckers and Judy
Oh.
Graham.
Oh.
I was listening and watching it.
Yeah, there's
The
emotional.
UConn women's game and
Oh,
Yeah, but-
that was good.
it was with Jamie Johnston and we're both sort of like, I'm not crying.
Yeah. Today's our first day of that. Yeah. I really don't know. So I grabbed it. Oh, it was no, it was because I, now, my toe, and I ever.
I wanted to.
Well, I really wasn't.
We shall reconvene. Item one, item four, I should say, public comment. Is there anybody, does anybody have any public comment? Thank you, guys. Is there any public comment tonight? No, if you have something you want to say about an item that has been agended, you can say it then. I mean, do you want to talk about hazard mitigation or the Board of Canvassers appointments? Yep, that's on. Why don't you wait until we get to that matter? Okay? Wow. Item 5, consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's going to planning, but since it's the town's property, I think we had to authorize the application.
Yes.
Okay, that, I was just.
Yep.
Thank you.
All those in favor
Aye.
indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We have two candidates. Are these the two candidates, Millie? Danielle,
Danielle Bates, and then we had the recommendation from the Democratic Party for Zena Clark.
can I have a motion?
Make a
to-
motion for Danielle Bates and Zena Clark.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. It's nice to actually have appointments in that section of the agenda. Thank you very much. Next is to hold a public hearing for the hazard mitigation and flood management plan. Can I have a motion to convene the public hearing?
So
please?
moved.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Hello. I mean, we just had yeah, Kim, we just had the presentation, what, like 3 weeks ago, I think? And I thought it was great and the work's been done. And I made a note, not only to thank you, but to thank Shirlene Goburn, who has been staffing this from the town's perspective, and I think doing a remarkable job of getting people in town to recognize the words hazard mitigation and flood management plan. Because I don't think before she got involved, it was something that people really paid attention to.
Is it okay if I thank a couple other people really quick?
Of course it
Okay.
is.
Well, my name is Kim Jacobs and I'm a civil engineer and resilience planning consultant and I talk soft, sorry about that. And I have had the pleasure of helping the town with this plan. We did have an amazing advisory committee co-chaired by Shirlene and Allison Ring. And the committee consisted of town staff, residents, conservationists, business and utility representatives and other stakeholders. And the committee was amazing. And, they helped to make it not only an outstanding plan, but a very community-centric plan. But in addition to the committee, I did want to give a shout out to some other departments and boards whose input and support were very much appreciated, including yourself, Keith, who came to some of our meetings and such, Millie McGinnis Hyatt, and the entire town clerk's office. I appreciated their help. Tax assessor Joan Holy, police chief Dean. And although both the Coastal Resilience Committee and Block Island Land Trust had representatives on the advisory committee, those committees as a whole, and in particular the following members, provided a great deal of support and input to the planning process. Sosha Cohen, Mary Anderson, and Nigel Grinley from CRC, and from the Block Island Land Trust, Barbara McMullen, and their clerk, Heidi Tarbucks. So thank you to everyone who was involved and the 182 respondents on the public opinion survey. So thank you to everyone for their engagement in the project.
I really appreciate how hard you all worked to engage the people in the public who were interested in this, or who didn't know whether they should be interested until they saw what was being discussed. I think it's a great model.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public who wishes to speak? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Item 8, approval of a resolution adopting the hazard mitigation and flood management plan. You got this in your packets or in clerk base. Appreciate the drafting. Whoever did the drafting, very helpful. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item 9, resolution in honor of Adrian Mitchell. Keith Stover gets a detention because he did not finish this and was unable to forward it to Nancy and others who were interested in it. Item 10, discuss and act on a request of Interstate Navigation to reconsider the town's position on the order and motion to reconsider. Where shall we start? Yeah, oh, right, of course. Sorry, Bill. Anybody want to start?
The motion to reconsider has to be made by, it has to be a formal motion to reconsider by someone who
Yes, by someone who
voted in the favor.
prevailing.
Yeah, we've had a little bit more guidance from Nick, who will jump in when I start to go astray. That given that this is in the context of a very different landscape, meaning we have a request from Interstate to reconsider and to submit under the process that they now have, meaning the April 14th deadline, that it could be exercised as a standalone motion as opposed to a motion to reconsider. Because it's a slightly different procedural element in front of the PUC. So the rules to reconsider would not apply in this case. Is that fair to say, Nick?
It is, and it's super technical, but you folks can proceed tonight.
Okay, so we can have the discussion and then a motion. Gotcha.
Sure, go ahead,
Yes.
Judy.
I know I'm supposed to wait until all the counselors have had their say. Judith Gray, 1192 Sands Pond Road. And I would, as a private citizen of the town of New Shoreham, like to encourage the town to reconsider its position and join forces with Interstate Navigation in its opposition to the Rhode Island Fast Ferry. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sosha.
Thank you, Sosha.
Anybody else? No, David?
David Lewis, Coonamus Road. Presumably this is superfluous because you know where I stand, but I echo both Sosha and Judy with my positive response.
Great. Thank you, David.
And I'll jump in and say that I had voted to do this in the first place. We've spent so many years on this issue that I just was very disappointed to find that there was kind of a dearth of interest. We've gone this far. We also heard from Interstate when they were here the other day that our fast ferry profits subsidize our traditional year-round Lifeline ferry. And so anything that would potentially, were it ever to happen, to impact the profitability of the interstate high-speed ferry could have ramifications for us. This is only a summertime ferry. There is no dock. There has never been a dock. And this is their motion because the PUC dismissed the application, because after the appeal was resolved, there still was no movement towards confirming a dock. And that's the issue that the town fought for all those years. I think the last thing we want is another ferry coming into the old harbor somewhere. So I fully support the idea that we get back engaged and get our solicitor at the PUC on the 14th.
Molly?
Well, so I just want to say, we had a few people last time who felt as if they needed to tell us how ungrateful we were to Interstate. So I would like to start by saying how grateful I am to Interstate. And that for over the years, for the 19 years that my children attended the Block Island School, Interstate Navigation provided free passage to all the kids for school trips, class trips, for the sports teams. I understand that that's no longer in place, but it was in place while my children were there and prior to their arrival, prior to my oldest's arrival at kindergarten there. And that was a really nice benefit and very grateful for that. I know that they've worked out a different arrangement with the school, which I think the school is just as grateful for. So You know, when my mother was sick and needed to go to the hospital in August, Jeanette got us a car on the ferry. My mother could not walk. And when my mother needed to come back to go into hospice, they were able to get an ambulance onto the boat. I'm very grateful for these things. My business, I spend over $15,000 a year in freight. And I am there every day, many times a day. I think I spend more time in the freight area than I spend at home in the summertime. My dog thinks that the guys at the freight office are her siblings. Very grateful for all of that. However, at that meeting, we were threatened, and in such a manner that I spent the weekend and my family spent the weekend wondering, if I don't flip my vote, are they going to move my laundry anymore? Are they going to transport my, now I know, you know, you can roll your eyes back there all you want, right? I have spoken to lots of people about this. Lots of people are like, absolutely not. They can't do that. The PUC won't let them. But I spoke to one person who was like, yeah, of course they can do that. You'll have to sue them. So it doesn't leave me a high level of comfort. I don't know how many of you watched that meeting. I don't know how many of you were at that meeting. We were threatened. And when we asked, you know, Keith asked them, wait, so this is quid pro quo? Yes, flat out. So I'm not comfortable with that. So I just want to say that as much as I am grateful, you know, and just like everyone else, I use Interstate for everything. Pick up our groceries every week. We pick up our Christmas tree at Interstate. Like I said, I use it for my business. I think also someone from the ferry company would have to explain to me, as Nancy just said, the last thing we want is another ferry. And I think Jennifer Phillips spoke pretty emotionally to that at the last meeting as well. I agree. But in the time frame in which the town was in lockstep with Interstate against the ferry company, lots of ferries were added. Lots of ferries were added, but they were added by Interstate and the New London ferry, right? So are we protecting a monopoly, or are we, like, what exactly are we doing? And I do wish very much that Interstate had given us reasons that weren't threats as to why I should change my vote. So I didn't hear a lot of reasoning. I heard, like, do this or this will happen. So it just a little frustrating for me. I'd like to hear reasons why we should be involved. My understanding, although perhaps I'm misunderstanding, is that the other ferry company has a lot of hurdles to jump through. And I don't know whether it's the town's business to be involved in that. There are lots of hurdles to jump through. They have to get a lot of approvals from the PUC. They don't have a dock, as Nancy said. But, you know, nobody from any of the other ferry companies checked in with the town to be like, hey, we want to run a ferry from, you know, Newport, or we want to run a ferry from Orient Point. Is that good with you guys? They just ran them. So this guy has hurdles to jump through that I don't know whether I need to be a part of. And if anybody here wants to explain to me why I should be a part of that and why I should change my vote, I'm happy to hear it. So that's where I'm at.
No, I don't have anything to add. We got direction. This is a non-action topic and I would have to reconsider. So no, my stance is still the same.
Gotcha. I really pretty desperately want a relationship. It's sort of my nature to get along and figure things out. And I have to say that the presentation last week and the conversations over the last couple of weeks did not rest well with me. That sort of quid pro quo approach was really, I thought, just did not sit well with me. We got a letter today from the Renoski family. And I just want to read from it because unsurprisingly, it's does a much better job than I would of sort of embodying my feeling about this. To be clear, we are not linking our support of the increased landing fee and our opposition to RIF. These are two separate issues that both highlight the long-standing relationship between BIE, IN, Intrastate, and the town. We hope, as do I, these discussions will mark the return to an open, regular dialogue. This type of dialogue is needed to address major long-term issues in and around the downtown and ferry terminal, such as parking and traffic, and much needed improvements to the visitor center. These issues cannot be properly addressed unless the parties all work together as partners for the long term. And I thought that was really well said. I'm not changing my vote. And while I know it's an overwhelmingly busy time of the year, Amy, I do think that I would like the council to be better armed with the regulatory landscape, because and where we can be involved, where we can be more involved, whether that involves specialized regulatory counsel, et cetera, because one of the frustrations that I have with myself is I feel terribly undereducated on a regulatory process that is so vital to our day-to-day lives. I just don't know as much as I feel like I should about it if I'm, going to serve on the council as well as I'd like to. Anyway, I'm here. I would love to engage. As I said, it's my nature, but I want to engage in an actual constructive conversation. Of course, Jess.
Jessica Ranowski. Thanks
Sorry, I quoted you without asking, but,
no,
but
not a problem. Thanks for receiving our letter. I'm here as a member of Block Island Express and also of Intrastate Nav, which is the company that owns the property in Old Harbor, out of which both Interstate Navigation and Block Island Express operate. I'm not a member of Interstate Navigation, the Lifeline Ferry. I don't speak on their behalf. As we stated in the letter, we do support an increase in a landing fee. It only makes sense. We technically, on Block Island Express, do not collect a landing fee because of the regulations involved in commerce between two states. Instead, we calculate what that landing fee would be at the end of every season. We present it to the town in the form of a donation. Whatever reasonable increase that the town lands on for this, we're happy to increase our donation accordingly. We make that donation every year because we feel that ferry operators have an obligation to give back and support the town as we bring the people to the town. We don't have any formal agreement in place, but we've done it every year since our inception. We are not linking this to the opposition to the Rhode Island Fast Ferry. We do, however, oppose the Rhode Island Fast Ferry, as we have for years, as the town has for years. I think that my brother Adam and I have had some productive, friendly conversations more privately with both Amy and Keith. We're weighing in a little bit more publicly now, only because the tenor of the recent council members have been troubling to us. This is a relationship that we think is unique, that has been hard won over many, many years, certainly long before my time, through generations of my family, through many town managers, through many council members. I think that we're all backing into our corners a little bit. And I think that that's regrettable. I do think that there's a human element here where we felt like we were in lockstep with the town for so long. There was so much energy and time and money put into the opposition, the joint opposition. And not because I've heard this term sort of bantered about the council of the town somehow funding what should be a private legal battle. I would push on back on that a little bit and say that this is a very important public-private relationship that we have. No one expected the town to fight a private legal battle. The town had its own reasons, I think, as you've heard from constituents of the town, for opposing the Rhode Island Fast Ferry. They came to the table of their own volition. They created this opposition for their own reasons. Sometimes those reasons were intertwined with ours and interstates, but we all came together to mutually oppose this for years. To have the town turn its back on that was surprising for us. I'm here tonight to try and stop backing into the corner, but to remind the town that there is this relationship, that in its best moments, it creates some wonderful things. Interstate Nav leases the visitor center to the town at no cost to the town. When the visitor center started to fall into disrepair, we jumped on it. We're in the midst of plans to overhaul it, not because we have to, or it's owed, or we're funding a public project, but because it's in service of this longstanding relationship, because it's the right thing to do, because it serves our common goal of supporting tourism in this town. I'm not threatening that. We're still doing it. I want to be very clear about that. I only use it as an example of the importance of the relationship, of keeping the lines of communication open. While I do hope that the town would reconsider its position, I understand that sometimes we're going to disagree. It's okay. I hope that if the council is going to not change its mind this evening, that it will at least give some thought to the weight of the disagreement, the way it can be perceived on the other side, as I'm trying to also understand the side of the council. I think that there are all sorts of challenges ahead of us, and that we all should come together to create the Old Harbor that we want mutually. So again, we hope to come to the table. We hope that you will change your vote, but we look forward to working together in the future.
That was
very much.
extraordinarily well put, Jess. And you know how you and I, you and Amy, I really do look forward to working with you. But I will say that relationships need to be nurtured with contact and conversation. That's really vital, and it's something that I know you get. And I don't. My hope is that this is actually a part of the repairing whatever drove us into our corners. That is really my hope. Really my hope, because a relationship with you, a relationship with Interstate is not just important, but vital, I think, from the town's perspective. So, you know, to the extent that I'm not asking you to, but to the extent that you have those conversations, we're here and ready to work.
Can I speak?
Sure, Nancy.
I think when this first came up, I made a fatal mistake in kind of assuming that everyone was still well aware of this fight, well aware of the duration of this fight, and well aware of the position that the town, in concert with interstate, intrastate, and ourselves, had been working since 2011. You know, I came to find out suddenly and kind of abruptly that that really wasn't true, and that it might have gone better if the history had been visited before the vote was taken. And for that, I fault myself, because goodness knows I lived that history, and I should have been more sensitive to it. However, having lived that history, I was also surprised that the tenor had changed. I think at this point in time, we've reached a pinnacle where we should all, as Jess said, stop pushing ourselves into corners and rethink the importance of what's in front of us and address the issues that brought about this kind of fraught relationship after the fact. But I think it's time for us to take a stand in concert with what has been going on over those past 14 years or so. Let's not make it personal. Let's not use categorization of threat, because that's never been the intention on any side here. This was a very lengthy, painful, but very definitive action that has been taken by parties where the assumption was that it would still continue that way. Heath, I appreciate the fact that you want to learn more about the regulatory process. That's almost secondary at this point, and we can certainly do that. And I think everybody sitting at this table should have an understanding of the regulations and the PUC. And we, in fact, had asked that of our solicitors a few weeks ago, and we'll get it as we're going through. But there's so much more at stake in salvaging a relationship right now. And if we miss this opportunity, you know, I think we're gonna cause some damage that's really unnecessary. It doesn't hurt us at all to ask Nick or James to go to the PUC, say once again, we object to you reopening this, and represent that in the hopes of ending that issue. It doesn't cost us anything, really. It may cost us a lot if we don't do that. And that's what worries me the most.
Thank you. I hear you and respect you. I reach a different conclusion, but that's what makes the world go round. Hey, David.
I was hoping not to do this, but I need to add to what Nancy has said, because she didn't say some equally important facts. You know, the council has spent a lot of time in the last couple of months dealing with budget issues and how do we make Block Island more affordable for Block Islanders as much as anything, as well as present a welcoming community. Practical reality is, if you strip the emotion out of the day when Interstate and their lawyer, or maybe he's an accountant, were here, if you strip the emotion out of what he said and the threats that you received or thought you received, I heard the same thing you did, and I can understand why you felt the way you do. What I hope you would have taken away, which is going to cost Block Island people money out of their own pocket, and everybody else that comes to Block Island, but especially us who depend on our Lifeline service and the financing that goes along with providing that to us at a reasonable cost. Simply put, if there's another fast ferry competing with the fast ferry coming from Point Judith owned by Interstate, that other fast ferry most likely is not going to, it's not going to provide any funds to offset the cost of operating the ferry service that we have today from throughout the winter months and most of the winter portion of the fall seasons, the shoulder seasons. That money goes away that subsidizes all the winter service. So it's just a matter of time before Interstate files the necessary rate increases across the next multi-year period when they actually can't afford to run it any longer because they're not getting the subsidy from the skimmed off fares that they will lose to the other company. At that point, there are two choices: either cut service or raise fares. Either of those, or perhaps a combination of both. And that's going to come back and cost Block Islanders money above and beyond what we would even foresee most likely, because none of us have privy, and we don't deserve to have privy to what the real finances are. That's what we rely on the PUC to do, is look at those books and examine them to make sure that Interstate is providing reasonable, adequate service at a PUC acceptable cost. And you strip a lot of the revenue away from the summer fast ferry service that they would be losing revenue to the new service. It's simple math and simple economics and simple understanding of how the PUC regulates, in this case, what is the portion of the Lifeline service is in fact a regulated monopoly. So they're in control. And it's just a matter of time before we'll think our taxes are our island real estate taxes are relatively low compared to the ferry service fees that we would likely have to pay years going forward. Now, I didn't put any numbers on that because I don't know what they are, and I'm not even saying whether this is a 5-year problem is 5 years away or 3 years away, or maybe 8 years away. Simply put, none of us know, but the responsibility, I think, at this point in time is for the council not to take any chances with the future ferry rates and do their best to make sure that that Lifeline service is sustained by preventing those summer fares to be skimmed off by an alternate service.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, guys. Oh, go ahead. Make sure your green light is on.
It's on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, just this is a great opportunity for me to obviously talk to you together because this has never happened before.
Yes, sorry.
Charlie Donadio, owner, operator of Rhode Island Fast Ferry. So I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to stand here before you and just give you a little background. I know it's getting late. We've been here for a long time. But again, my name's Charlie Donadio. I'm a resident of Narragansett. I've been there for almost 45 years. And I have frequented this island since I was 13, surfing Black Rock, Southwest Point. I come here, have dinner. I've stayed here overnight. I've been here hundreds of times. So I am a local guy, just on the other side of the pond. I've been in the water transportation business for 30 years. So I started everything on my own. I learned everything on my own when I bought the Southland Riverboat down in Galilee. And I used to stand there and watch the boat leave and leave hundreds of people at the dock over and over again in the summertime. And I got an idea while riding the boat, and I said, maybe I'll start up a ferry service. And I remember the day that Bob Marr, who was the son of Emma Marr, who sold me the business, I asked him about running a ferry company from Galilee. And he was in his 60s, and I was in my mid-20s. And he walked me up to the front bow of the Annecy. He looked up, and he pointed up at the ferry and said, "Do you see that, Charlie? That's Goliath, and you're David, and it's never going to happen." And from that point going forward, I was like, I'm going to do this. And I researched the market. I looked at Highline Cruises, who started the first high-speed ferry on the East Coast, and looked at the demand, looked at the ridership, where the people came from, and realized this is what Block Island needs. So back then, started up the high-speed ferry, the Athena, which was my idea, and the same arguments that Interstate Navigation brought before you were the same exact arguments back then. And as it turns out, without the Athena, it sounds like Interstate would be out of business right now because they're running their ferry at a loss, which is pretty surprising because those boats are overfilled, packed to the brim every single day in the middle of the summer. So I can't see how they're actually losing money. My company is a family company. I own it with myself, my wife, my 2 daughters. So we're not a big corporation. When I started the Island High-Speed Ferry, I ended up ultimately selling the company to my partnership, and I moved on to onto Martha's Vineyard, where I ended up starting the first high-speed ferry to Martha's Vineyard back then. That was 23 years ago. Today, there's 6 high-speed ferries that run to that island from multiple different locations, and the island is thriving. They're bringing in people from all over the place. And the town of Oak Bluffs absolutely loves as many ferries that can come in the summertime because they know they're bringing in people that spend money. They're not bringing cars in. They're not impacting the roads. So we've had a great relationship with the town of Oak Bluffs over the years. So while I was attending the town council meeting myself and I was watching what was unfolding, I was absolutely, utterly dumbfounded of what happened in front of me. I mean, you could call it blackmail, bribery, extortion. As Keith nicely put it, quid pro quo. Also, definitely a serious form of anti-competitive behavior with the intention to protect their monopoly. And I think from day one, when I started the high-speed ferry out of Point Judith, it's been all about protecting the monopoly. And between Interstate and Cross Island Ferry, it's the same family. So to me, it's just one family running a monopoly to the island. I'm just going to go through my notes here because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So seasonal passenger-only ferries in Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are what brings in a majority of the spending dollars on the island, which support the seasonal businesses, the restaurants, the gift shops. Without those seasonal influx of tourists that come from all over the place, the businesses would not do as well. Whether they come from Interstate Navigation, in Connecticut, when I started up the Athena, the argument was we're going to steal ridership. It never affected their ridership. And then when we want to start up a high-speed ferry from Quonset Point, there's 3 high-speed ferries that started up from Connecticut. It never eroded away the ridership. It's the same argument they've made over the years to protect the monopoly. And I know that this council has an opportunity to read the 143-page decision that took almost 12 years now. We went through, obviously, appeals and time and time again, all kinds of delays on getting to where we are today. So in response to the doomsday scenario on lifeline rate and increases that Mike McElroy had said here, I just want to go through what some of the things the division had put on the record. Now, the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers had to say, when they evaluated all the evidence from the impacts of a new high-speed ferry service to Interstate's lifeline service, this is the relevant history on the evidence and the facts they presented. You may remember when Mr. McElroy was telling you about the experts' prediction that Interstate used in their arguments, loss of customers. They came up with the term cream skimming 23 years ago, massive impacts to revenues and impacting lifeline rates. Those predictions were, in a word, debunked by the Division of Public Utilities after listening to the countless years of evidence from both experts on both sides. In other words, Interstate's arguments were not convincing. They were rejected by the division and by the Superior Court as well. Here's what the Division of Public Utilities said in their final decision, which was upheld by the Superior Court decision as well. Interstate offered the same lifeline death spiral in 1998 when I started up Island High Speed Ferry, saying the lifeline would be fatally impacted, and also that there was no public need for high-speed ferry service in the first place. Both predictions proved dramatically incorrect. As you know, you go on any high-speed ferry in the summer, they're all full. Simply stated, division was not persuaded that Interstate's expert, Dr. Mazzi, which Mr. Mike McElroy had stated at the counter at your last meeting, his survey results represented an accurate indicator of how interstate revenues would be affected and by the introduction of risk proposed service. The division said on the record does not support Interstate in the town's death spiral scenario. The division said Interstate has repeatedly raised the lifeline death spiral argument on numerous occasions over a 20-year period across multiple proceedings, and that such a doomsday predictions had never proven true despite several new interstate and intrastate entrants into the Block Island ferry market, including the 3 high-speed ferries from New London on Crosstown Ferry. The division's conclusion from the evidence and arguments proffered in the instant matter, the division finds no possibility that Interstate's lifeline service will ever suffer any meaningful decay from the indirect competition that will result from granting of Rhode Island Fast Ferry's application for seasonal high-speed ferry service. This is in a direct decision that was issued by the PUC. In other words, the division did not find Interstate's expert credible, saying, quote, RIF also raises some valid concerns with respect to the strength and reliability of Dr. Mazzi's survey. The division reminded us that lifeline and high-speed are distinctly different services, 2 different modes of transportation. RIF's expert, Rhode Island Fast Ferry's expert economist, Larry Kunkel, said there is a dormant, unserved market for additional high-speed ferry service to Block Island from Quonset Point that is not currently satisfied by Interstate's high-speed ferry service from either Point Judith or Newport. Mr. Kunkel said there is an unserved market for travelers from mid-state and northern Rhode Island, as well as Massachusetts, who have avoided Interstate's traditional and high-speed galley services because of the burdens involved with driving there in the summertime traffic down 95, then Route 4, then Route 1, then Point Judith Road, and then finding parking. Mr. Kunkel noted that Martha's Vineyard has 7 mainland departure points with 10 total ferry services. And by the way, all of us pay landing fees in Oak Bluffs. I operate out of state, much like Crosstown. I still pay the landing fee. It's a requirement by the state of Massachusetts. It's not a donation, it's required, and we have no problem paying it. Mr. Kunkel's opinion is that Interstate is gaming the system. Again, this is a quote out of the decision. Gaming the system where the ultimate payoff has been preserving its monopoly on ferry transportation from the mainland to Rhode Island, Block Island. The division summed it up this way. There is nothing significant in the instant record that would lead to the division to conclude that this historical pattern of lifeline service would be jeopardized by the entry of a new water carrier providing a different mode of service, high-speed versus traditional, of a seasonal transportation service. On the benefits of competition and new ferry services, Rhode Island Fast Ferry not bringing in cars and freight, bringing people that will bring their wallets and spend money for more tax revenue to the town. As Nancy Dodge pointed out, Block Island is a tourist-driven economy. That's why the Block Island Chambers has supported Rhode Island Fast Ferry in the past, because they know that we would bring in more people into the town that will actually just spend money. The division's final order had a lot to say about the benefits of competition to both Block Island and Interstate Navigation's incentives to improve their services as well. The division quotes, Interstate's Lifeline service will need to coexist with existing and potential future interstate ferry services to Block Island. Presently, there exists directly competing high-speed ferry service between New London, Connecticut, and Block Island. And when they started up, nobody said anything. It's because it's a family member. They were directly competing, pulling people up from 95 from the south, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, which were all of Interstate's customers.
Would you mind just summarizing a little bit, Charlie?
Yep, I'm almost done. Sorry. Again, sorry, I know it's been a long night. I could also send this over to you too. So I'll just end it on this. In response to the quid pro quo threat, it would have been one thing for Interstate to honestly come to the town and request a reconsideration, but that's not what they did. They instead came to the town with a threat to coerce the town to take a position favorable to them. The threat, if you don't change your positions and join Interstate's objection, we will oppose the town and the proposed increase in the landing fee, forcing the town to expend more legal fees and resources to defend the landing fee proposal. Partners who stand shoulder to shoulder with each other do not threaten or use coercion tactics to force the other partner in reversing a previous decision. I'll end this by saying Rhode Island Fast Ferry would gladly collect a $1.75 landing fee for the town. This does not affect ridership. It's a separate convenience fee at the bottom of the ticket, and it's seen as a pass-through tax in any ferry service you take. I also think it's absurd that Interstate actually charges you 15% to collect the fee. It doesn't cost a penny to collect this fee. When we collect our landing fee for Oak Bluffs, they get 100% of the proceeds. So I think that's another thing you can consider, is that there is no cost to actually collecting this town a fee.
Thank you, Charlie.
So, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before you go, I just think it's important. You heard David Lewis's very articulate and compelling concerns. I don't think it should come as a surprise to you, because actually we talked about this last summer. The concern at this table, at least one of the main concerns at this table, is what happens on February 5th, on a Tuesday in February, or a Monday in January. And it should not come as a surprise that there's unanimity at this table about how important it is for us to work closely with Interstate, because they're vital to us. And as I've said to you when we met, the important thing for me is what happens to us after Labor Day or after Columbus Day. And over time, I think that's something that, depending on what the outcome of all this regulatory stuff is, that's sort of the bright line for me.
Yeah, I mean, the same could be asked of Cross Sound Ferry. They bring 3 high-speed ferries in here, and they were never asked that question because they are a family member. So, I mean,
well, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the 3 high-speed ferries.
Charlie,
Yeah. Okay.
I just,
So-
this is not, I was trying to summarize and try to move the ball forward. I get it.
Okay.
I get it. But I guess I just don't want to send a message that what I think is an important but not unfigure-outable family squabble between us and Interstate in any way means that we don't want a solid, tight relationship going forward because they're vital to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all ferry services can work together. So, any other questions?
Terrific. No,
Okay,
not
thank you.
for me. Thank you, Charlie.
I am just going to toss in for the fact that I've been around here since 1950, and the testimony at the PUC was, I don't know of one company that has come in and said, we'll run year-round a ferry to Block Island. So when people refer to this as a monopoly, it's not like other operations have been kept out at all. And the subsidy that flows to the traditional ferry from the high-speed ferry is a requirement imposed by the PUC. And when you read some of the comments that the PUC has made, you have to, if you live through them, the Public Utilities Commission serves the whole state of Rhode Island. They are protecting us to an extent, but they are also required to consider the rest of this state and the needs of the people in the state. Charlie didn't get in here because he didn't have a dock, and he still doesn't have a dock. And you can talk about monopolies and all of the rest. He didn't have a place to bring the boat, and we controlled the Red Breakwater where he was focused, and we controlled the Old Harbor.
Great. Thank you, Nancy.
I know it's been a long night and there's been a lot of discussion going on, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but there's been a lot of issues that have been raised here that I'd like to address. Number one, I'd like to address what Nancy just talked about. It was my father that sold the Ranowskis the property in Old Harbor when it was a beach before it was filled in and bulkheaded. And when he did that, he kept a small piece of property adjacent to it and told me in case we ever wanted to have our own marina and we ever had to have our own dock, we wouldn't be landlocked. And I feel like the town is in the same situation. The town, honestly, in my opinion, has been held hostage by this company and this family of companies. I was forced to sit here the last 10 minutes and listen to Jessica Ranowski try to tell us that the two companies are separate. But yet I have a document here that was submitted to the PUC that says there's a trust for Jessica that holds shares in Interstate Navigation Company. There's also Interstate Nav is co-owned with non-voting shares by the Lindas. There's cross-ownership between these two companies, and I've watched them work hand in hand to perpetuate their monopoly in this town since 2004. In 2004, everything was fine in our relationship with the Ranowskis. They brought the customers to the island, and the businesses of my family and others served those customers. That relationship ended when the Filippi family decided to build its own dock in Old Harbor. And ever since that time, we've been sued, we've been harassed by this family of companies. And I'll tell you, they're working hand in hand, and this town has a stake of Stockholm Syndrome. And it was proven the other day when this company tried to hold the town hostage on their landing fee. This is not a cooperative relationship where one entity holds another entity hostage. In fact, I noticed the envelope that was handed over by Mike McElroy when he presented his quid pro quo. And to me, the envelope seemed pretty thin. It looked like there was just a check in there. There's no accounting of the passengers that come over on the ferry. There's no accounting of how those landing fees are collected. And there's no accounting that each passenger pays the landing fee and that is turned over to the town. I would encourage this town in the legislation to get a handle on the accounting behind this landing fee that's supposed to be turned over to the town.
Thank you, Paul.
It seems like you guys don't want to hear any more of my testimony tonight, but this is ridiculous. If you look at how this company, this family of
The agenda
companies,
item is to reconsider the fast ferry motion.
well, then I would like to speak, I think Interstate tied those two issues together when
Not ti-
they issued that quid pro quo last week. Those two issues were one and the other. It was the landing fee would get paid in the future if the town chose to help Interstate fight competition. That was the quid pro quo. And that's what I'm speaking to.
I think you've seen me often enough here that my very strong, probably sometimes to everybody's detriment, is to listen and hear out. So that's my bias. If you could summarize, that'd be great.
I would gladly summarize, Keith.
Thank you.
I would just like to summarize it. I've experienced these two companies working hand in hand behind the scenes, professing that they're not connected, but at the same time, having the same interest in preserving this monopoly. And I think the town should be aware of this. I think that if the landing fee is not going to be collected by Interstate Navigation, or Interstate Nav is the same company, if that landing fee is not going to be collected unless the town fights the monopoly, the town should go to the AG's office and get a restraining order against this family of companies to enforce them to collect this fee. Or, on the other hand, I think the town should pursue legislation that the DEM collect the landing fee with an accurate counting of the passengers that leave the state wharf of Galilee, and that accounting and that money should be turned over to the town without question. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. All right, what we have before us is a request to reconsider. Is there a motion from someone who would like to make this motion? I think three of us are no's, but no motion. Oh, come on, guys. Come on. Come on. Item 11, receive a legislative update from the interim.
I'll make a motion that we should absolutely reconsider, because I think you ought to record your vote on this. I'm sure I'm not going to get a second, but. Oh, Paul.
Come on, Paul.
Unfortunately, this just made everything worse tonight, and that was the farthest thing from many.
No, come on, Paul. That's enough. Just enough. We're done. We're on a different agenda item. No second to the motion. Amy.
Okay. Somewhat old business. In that we'll do a little bit of a review of the items that.
Can we get Bill back in here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Bill.
He's sleeping. He's on the conference table.
So just a quick review of the legislation that we've submitted, starting with the Water Resources Management, which is the New Shoreham Jamestown Water District item. So that has been introduced in both the House and the Senate, House 6069 and Senate 712.
This is the right to claim membership in the district.
Yes.
Right.
Prohibiting that.
Yes.
So that's moving its way along. The school bonds, the 10.4 million to be eligible for interest, House Bill 699 and Senate 422. It did pass the Senate already. It was heard.
Great job, Nancy.
It was heard last week in the House. There were no issues or concerns raised. May 4th was in the room. However, it was heard with 2 to 3 other school finance bills. All of them were held for consideration. They're going to follow up and make sure that there aren't any issues. But the thought at the moment is that somebody else was missing paperwork. They're going to hold them all together and move them all together.
Gotcha.
So, that could be a little snafu, but we've done everything we need to so far. And Rick and Jeff are keeping an eye on it. The other is the tax classification plan. It's been, again, introduced in the House, Bill 6090, has not yet been introduced in the Senate. So those are the ones that are currently on their way. And again, nobody's expressed any concerns about those coming through. The one I just gave you is a bill that has been introduced in both the House and the Senate. And it's called the Non-Owner Occupied Property Tax Act. And this is more for information. At this point, I've asked Rick and Jeff to keep an eye on it and let us know if it has any traction. It's being heard in the House on the 9th. But this would impose a state level, not local, but state property tax for residential properties that are not owner occupied that have an assessed value above $800,000.
So this is not the local option.
This is not local. I can't imagine that it has much traction, but it is introduced in both the House and the Senate by our legislators, which is, might be another reason why we may want to weigh in if it does have legs. So I give that to you just to digest.
Is it just to garner revenue for the state? There's no other, it just goes to the state?
I haven't understood any other use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did our legislators mention this to us?
Not
About
that I
this bill
was,
going in, because it has a big impact.
not that I was aware of, no. Obviously, our median assessed value is 1.2. We have very few properties below $800,000. And then obviously the owner occupied split.
What was the amount, Amy? Do you know off the top of your head they were looking for?
The tax amount?
Yeah.
It's a sliding scale. So on $1 million property, it's about $5,000. So it's not insignificant.
No, no, I mean,
I would think that this would merit a conversation with our legislators because
Indeed.
it clearly
Yeah.
impacts us. And there should have been some conversation for
We-
them to put their name on this.
We can get them into the next meeting or try to, or at least get some feedback. But I wanted you to be aware of that.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's important because even if this doesn't have legs, I think they need to know that if something like
Yeah.
this has an impact, we expect to reach out.
Yes,
Do
I
you-
agree.
Do you think they're introducing this as a way to push back on short-term rentals?
Not necessarily, but I think we'll know more about that landscape after the first hearing.
And is the other one still alive? The Victoria Gu introduced that one in Westerly.
Yes, the whole landscape of hotel tax and short-term rental, full house rental is still in flux, I would say. May 4th didn't have, they couldn't tell me exactly where all the pieces were going to land. It sounds like it'll probably be a last minute element of the bargaining discussions. So we continue to touch base about it, but there's not a lot of new information about what is most likely to prevail.
Being the master of the obvious here, I'm sorry, but Tina and Alana have got to know that one of their towns, this is deadly for us. It's, and regressive in a way that really troubles me because people who've been most harmed by it are, probably people who have owned their homes for a long time, have had appreciation that they've never capitalized, and now are potentially liable for an additional $5,000 bill to the state. I mean, that's rather problematic.
It almost seems unconstitutional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I said, I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't saying anything, but I need to get 10 sentences off my chest. So thank you.
That is one reason I brought it to you, even though I don't think it will have a lot of traction, because I do think I had an emotional response as well.
Yeah.
And so it was important to share.
This is, I guess, where I think we're the anomaly, right? Because they each represent, Alana represents Narragansett, where they have a shrinking number of students in their school system that's causing them problems. When we have a shrinking number of children in our school system, it isn't because of our real estate. Over there it is, right? Over there, it is definitely because corporations are buying homes,
Well,
renting them to college students during the school year and renting them out by the week in the summer.
and they have houses for sale that are less than $1 million.
Yeah.
We have,
That's true too.
you know what I mean?
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, we don't have that.
And if they think that this money, any money that's collected and goes to the state is gonna somehow come back to benefit them, they're, I have a bridge I can sell them.
And a lot of those houses in their districts are affected by this.
Hmm.
And like I said, I think the disturbing part is, I don't think I think they're representatives and they need to know how we feel about it from that end of it. So I'd appreciate whatever you could do to set up from that end of it.
Great.
Amy, I might have missed it when you went through it. There's that one bill I think the governor has and then the Senate has with that 5%.
Yeah, there's sort of a package of hotel tax
Yeah.
expansion to whole house rentals. And we don't have a good sense yet of which of those might prevail.
Maybe
It's
after
all
break.
sort of swirling around in the bargaining.
The feeling is one of them is going to.
Yes.
But which is the 5%, just a matter of will it go to the homeless or will it come back to the towns?
Yeah. One other that I just wanted to call your attention to say we have a position, which is, it's House Bill 6186, creating a task force to study and define the term houseboat. So this has actually been floating around for quite some time in the legislature. And Kate has continually said she doesn't believe it's an issue and doesn't have any position on any of the changes that have been floated about. But if they did create a task force, we would try, and they've held a position for 3 harbor masters, municipal harbor masters. We will try to lobby to make sure we're at the table, at least to make sure we don't have any adverse impacts.
So I actually think that this is something I'm concerned about for me, because I think when you have the real estate prices we were just talking about, we're not too far off from someone buying a couple of houseboats and renting them as, like, who knows what that looks like. And I just.
The short response is she feels, and many harbor masters feel this way, that there is adequate enforcement in their existing ordinances.
I see.
That they don't need the state to create a definition that
Gotcha.
applies universally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm assuming that part of the reason that we haven't had the problem is that our ordinances are sufficient, I just worry when the state.
yeah, so
decides
we'll
on a
keep track of that
one-size-fits-all
one,
there.
just to make sure we don't miss anything in the conversation. The harbor master doesn't feel there's a problem. But they had, I think it was 2 that were grandfathered. I think they're down to 1. So, but that's all I had on the legislative update.
Terrific, thank you. Is Nick still awake?
Yes.
You're up.
All right. This is item 12, receive update from town solicitors regarding the stone wall constructed on town property. Just a quick update on this one. As directed by the council, we filed suit against the property owner on the matter. We're seeking a preliminary and permanent injunction, basically a court order ordering the removal of the wall. On Friday, we received an email from the attorney for the property owner. That's been circulated to the council. The matter in the email basically is looking for alternatives other than moving the wall. I know we've talked about in the past, and the council rejected those alternatives and simply wanted the wall removed. If there's a desire on the part of the council to discuss those further or basically reconsider its position, we could possibly put that on a future agenda, but otherwise we'll continue moving forward.
I'd suggest, I don't think those are mutually exclusive, but what do I know? But I do think it's a new council. At some point.
You actually acted on this on December 18th.
Oh, we did?
You did.
No, for the litigation. But we have an email from them saying, is there something in the interest of settling. That's what I was getting at. Okay, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. That's
Well,
won't be
when
the
I
first
read their letter, I wanted to clarify with everyone else, but I thought we were well beyond that point.
That's definitely how I feel. I'm trying to be,
Is that how you have it in the minutes?
Yeah, that
Okay.
you took a vote on December 18th
Okay.
to initiate legislation.
oh, that's right, because Nick and James reapproached their lawyer. That's right.
Basically
That's-
asked James if he would, but
Yes,
you know,
that's
this
right.
is the same
Yes,
solution that was on the table before
right,
that.
yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that update, Nick. Yes?
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is on a different topic.
Oh, okay. Is it on raise items for future agendas?
No, it's on, it was on the earlier one. It just said, this
Oh,
was
yeah.
on the, this was on the cemetery, on the section, on a consent agenda.
Yeah.
And I just, I'm hoping that maybe we can, on the bottom it said, the memorial carving was fallen. I didn't know it's a total big. I think this is I'd like to have some more talk about this, because I think it's a great idea. I think a lot of people would take advantage of it. It's just, there's so many people, you know, that have the cremation and BBC whatnot. And when I read this, I wasn't sure what and maybe Amy can get us a little more information. I wasn't sure if that was the $4 fee was just for the carving, or was like.
Oh, yeah.
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 Okay. The $400 fee is just for the town, basically to support or to have the privilege of having your name memorialized or your loved one memorialized on the stone. Karen Sprague will take a separate charge for the actual engraving.
So the $400 is like buying a plot.
Yeah.
It's buying a spot on the
stone, correct.
And that'd be great if we could, if there's some publicly, we can say what that is, you know, because I think it's, and a little more information about it, I think would be great, because I don't know, it's a certain thing where you could buy 3 and you have them, or.
I was wondering if was it 24 was enough? I mean, if we wanted to have a conversation, it seems to me like.
So the initial stone is it was 24, and then there was room for 2 stones on either side. There's going to be an initial stone, then there's growth would be a stone on either side, and then they could certainly, I believe, stone out from there as well. So this is the initial stone, and they have plans, if the need exists, to put a stone on either side.
So can you get us that information? Because
What the total number would.
They go to you?
They would start with Mike. 'Cause Mike would kind of usually talks, he's the sexton, he talks about what the options are, but they do know, then they purchase through us. But Mike and I were talking about this program earlier, so.
Okay, so people should, so if they want more information, touch base with Mike, and then he can direct them, you know.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So when you were saying you wanted more information, what were you particularly looking for? And I'll have him
I
report.
was basically looking, like, if I wanted to buy 3 or 4 of them, which I'm seriously considering.
Yeah.
You know, was it, you know, what's the total cost of the engraving and so forth? Because obviously, I mean, hopefully that, you know, it won't be, final top won't be put on. Yeah, I mean,
And yeah, I don't know if I think the engraving, he was considering that proprietary between Karen
and whoever,
yeah. Yeah, so that you wouldn't
But
necessarily be able to
a-
buy that carving in advance, but there may be room for negotiation.
I'll touch base with Mike.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think that,
Let me, when you said you'd be interested in like 2 or 3, I mean, I was wondering, you know, like a plot, can you buy a line and, you know, how is that going to work?
Don't believe, just from my conversations with Mike, that you could reserve a certain spot, meaning you're not going to get 3 together. It's going to be sequential, if you will, in time. So you may be separated from your other 2.
the reason I asked.
Yeah.
Is over the niches, you know, so, but the same concept on the outside. You can pre-buy the niches and, you know, whatever it might be with sequential stuff. I didn't know if it was something like that. But I'll touch base with Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and one quick one on the consent decree, and I know you want to get to your game, I'm sorry.
No.
But there was a wetlands permit application in that consent, and I tried.
So in order to get the permit, the permit application itself, you actually need to put in a full request to DEM. We're working out the process.
But that doesn't, I have that, but when you go to this site here for the actual permit, it doesn't
Right.
come up, yeah.
No, it doesn't come up. You have to contact DEM for the permit application. We're working on our process because this is relatively new. The town only has 15 days to respond to those applications. So they are coming to, and we can identify 2 people in the town to receive those notices. So they come to me, so they go to the town council, and they come to Jen, who then passes them off to conservation. Conservation doesn't always meet. And so they have 2 members who are reviewing those applications to see if they need to convene special meetings.
Great.
Again, it's still a little bit of a work in process, but that's the goal. And in most cases, land use will have a copy of that application if it's something that you want to see. I would go to Jen first and then try DEM if that doesn't work.
Terrific. Anything under item 13, future agendas? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.